good afternoon. Finally, seeing some faces that I've been dealing for the past month. Thank you so much for being here with us today, for your support to the Cybersecurity Bootcamp for Women. Uh, Unfortunately, because so many students are in different zone time, they won't be able to join us. But then, and you will be able to see later the recording for this session. I'm just getting some time for the other students to join us. Uh, Paul will do a presentation discussing some important points about the course, the women in cybersecurity. And at the end of his presentation, we will open for a Q&A. You can send through the chat, or at the end of this session, if you feel comfortable, you can turn on your camera and ask directly to him. Let's just wait 1 more minute. I still have some girls joining us. I will ask everyone to keep the microphones on mute and just turn on at the end of the session during the question Q&A session. Okay, so Paul, I think we are ready to start. If you can start for us, it would be perfect.
Sure, great. Thanks, Natalia, and welcome everybody to our ILT session, our instructor-led training session for the Cybersecurity Bootcamp for Women. I'm first here to say congratulations to all of you who have completed this course, because I know it's an awful lot of information in a relatively short period of time, and it's quite intense, but congratulations to you. So what this live session is about is I'm going to use about 30-40 minutes to summarize some of the more salient points of the material I've gone through, but really it's a chance for you to interact if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, or really to help you in any way to bring you into the world of cybersecurity. Because as you know, where this initiative came from was, and we launched it on International Women's Day, was because there is like a ridiculous statistic that less than 10% of the cybersecurity industry is made up of women, which is crazy when you think that there's over 5-6 million open jobs in cybersecurity. And what we have found, and it's through no design, it's through no strategy, but actually the majority of participants on the Cyber Academy are women, and dare I say that the highest results on the courses are actually by female students. So go figure. So I think the industry needs women and needs good people to work within all areas of cybersecurity. And I think hopefully we can give you a flavor for that and give you an idea of the different paths that you may be able to take within the cybersecurity industry itself, because it's not all about a technical trail. It's not all about, firewalls and vulnerabilities and so on. So let me kick in, guys, because I've got quite a bit of material to get through. And what I want to do is just let you relax into the material, tune into my accent for those of you who are not that favorite a very fast Irish accent, and I'll hopefully put out some food for thought there, and we can discuss that towards the end of the this webinar as well. Let me go through. So let me start. So look, I've spent about 30 years in the world of cybersecurity, working all over the world. I left Ireland when I was like 19, I think it was, when I went to live in Kazakhstan, in Russia, and down by the Caspian Sea. And my career has brought me all around the world, working in all facets of cybersecurity. I started off in a very technical end, around security architecture, networking, and so on. But the journey has brought me into all the different facets of it, everything from legal, culture, training, all different aspects of it. And it's a fascinating industry to be involved in. It really is. And there's probably never been a better time. And I'll explain why now when we go through some of these slides. But about 10 years ago, I founded this not-for-profit initiative, the International Cyber Threat Task Force. And it was really because cyber wasn't as big as it is now 10 years ago. And a lot of people, when they were suffering attacks, it became really, really apparent to me and really, really obvious that people weren't communicating. So good people were not talking to each other. Good people were not sharing information not sharing intelligence, not helping and educating each other. They were almost embarrassed if they became victims of cybercrime in any way or a cyber attack. And that meant it was really easy for the bad guys or for the evil threat actors to carry out whatever they were trying to do, whether it was attacking an individual, attacking a vulnerable child, attacking a business, whatever it happened to be. So I founded this organization as a community, an online virtual community, as a way for good people, the good cyber threat actors, and it's apolitical. Like we don't care where somebody's from, as long as they've got a good motive and they're involved in the community. So we don't judge the country. Or the origin of the people who participate within our community, and self-regulated and so on. And that has evolved into annual summits. And being a proud Irishman, I make sure those summits are held in Ireland every year. And we actually have one coming up on November the 30th in the Convention Centre in Dublin. So that'll be interesting. We're going to get 200 of the top cyber leaders of the world together to talk about what can be done about the emerging cyber threats and the status of where we are today. And we also developed, obviously, the Cyber Risk Academy, which you now be familiar with. And that was our way of, during COVID, of continuing our mission to be able to spread information, good information, educational material, and so on. And we formulated that into the Cyber Risk Academy. And what spawned out of that was this initiative and this innovation of a cyber security bootcamp for women as well. So to pay the bills, I also head up an organization known as Cyber Risk International. We've developed a piece of technology. So that's a bit of my background in relation to that space. But I'm going to kick in straight in, guys. And I did a TED talk last week, and I talked about the fact that there's a realization that people talk about digital society, people talk about cyber and cyber world, but it almost feels like they're outside of that world, that they're not part of it. But the reality is we are all part of the cyber world and the physical world, and we have no choice but to exist in both. And in the physical world, there are laws, there's social norms, and there's consequences if you do something bad or you do something against the rules. And also crime works a lot differently in the real physical world. So, for example, if somebody wanted to rob a bank and they were daft enough to try and break into a bank to steal cash, they have to get proximity to the bank. They have to calculate things like the weight of money in order to be able to take out the money. Getaway cars, they may get shot, they may get killed, who knows, depending on where they are in the world. And all of those are factors they take into account. But in the cyber world, criminals are able to access the asset from anywhere in the world, steal it, and you mightn't even know that they've taken it, because what they've essentially done is copied it, because the asset, the cash, if you like, is data, and data is the new cash. And the data that they'll steal, they'll sell many, many times well on the marketplaces. The fresher it is, the more money they'll get for it. The more specialized it is, the more exotic that information is, the more money they'll get. What do I mean by exotic? I mean, for example, the highest rate of information being paid on the underground economy of criminals at the moment is for sick children. Why sick children? Because the scam is to contact the parents of sick children and pretend that they're representing a medical hospital with an experimental cure, and they will ask for money in order to be able to put the child forward for trials. This is the reality of cyber evil. These people have no conscience, they have no ethics, they have no morals, and they don't care. And if anybody thinks I'm exaggerating, the entire health sector of Ireland was knocked out and is still damaged in many ways due to a ransomware attack. And they don't care if a child can't get cancer treatment. They don't care the real physical effects that has. And this is what we're seeing, that there's no conscience to a lot of these cyber threat actors. It's and I'm not talking about the ordinary decent criminal of the underworld with physical stuff where they might have had unwritten rules about who can be a target and who can't be. Cyber criminals do not care who they affect. They have their motivation to make money or whatever their motivation is, and they carry that out with almost impunity, and they will do. And it's up to people like ourselves to make it harder, if not impossible, for them to disrupt them and to be able to beat them, essentially. So if I move on a little bit, so you'll recall this slide, hopefully, and this is a little infographic showing some of the major cyber threat actor groups. So by groups, I mean the groupings, but it's blurred lines between all of this, guys. I mean, you'll find cyber criminals are in this business for money. That's their objective. That's their motivation. We find nation states may do it for geopolitical reasons to be able to get ahead in some way, an economic advantage. We may see hacktivists that do it for ideological reasons, or even terrorist groups may do it for ideological reasons, or do it just to spread propaganda or scare people with violence and terror online. And of course, you've thrill seekers, people that do it essentially to coin the Irish phrase, for the crack. I mean, they get kudos out of it. They might be script kiddies working out of a bedroom, but they get this huge persona online because they're able to break into systems and they're able to make things do things they shouldn't do. And that's where the term hacking is essentially come from. It's actually a carpentry term, but hacking a piece of timber into a different shape, making it something different or do something different. And that is essentially what hacking is. And in many ways, we shouldn't think of hackers as bad. Right, I'm an ethical hacker, certified ethical hacker. I mean, hackers have brilliant minds in relation to being able to make things do things differently. And the world wouldn't be the world it is without innovation, by people that can question things and see, can they make them work faster, better, different. So we need those kind of brilliant minds, and those kind of brilliant minds I often talk about because criminals go after those minds. Organized criminals will try and groom, prey on those kind of children. Essentially, a lot of them are very young, who may be on the spectrum, may have Asperger's syndrome or whatever. And you will see that these are the children that end up, or these are the entities and the individuals, the humans that get arrested and face attribution, where the organized criminals, they get away with it. So there's a lot to think about within society. And of course, then we have the insiders. The insiders is a very important group because traditionally, up to at least a decade ago anyway, the world of cybersecurity was based on the premise of just keep building the castle walls higher and keep the bad guys out. And as if it was the only objective was not to get hacked. Okay, now that you might question that and say, really, Paul? But to make something so secure that it can't be hacked may make it unusable. And this is where the balance of cyber risk management comes in. This is where the art of understanding, what does the business need? What kind of data flows? What kind of access is appropriate? How do you manage the risk? This is where it comes into. It's not a black and white situation about we fix and we implement things so that nothing can ever be hacked. Because if you do that, maybe you just can't use the data. It doesn't become usable for your customers, for your supply chain, for your staff, and so on. So it's about balance, understanding the risk level, mitigating it, managing it. And that's really where the industry has evolved to over the last decade or so. But from the insider's perspective, because traditionally security architectures and so on are developed in such a way as to keep people out, if the rules are broken and the bad person is on the inside, or the bad person gets inside by getting control of a machine on the inside, you often find that security controls from the inside perspective on your network, for lateral movement, for looking at other servers, for exploring all the systems, there's little to no security often from within inside. And that's what they count on. They count on someone clicking on a link to give them access from that workstation, from that device, to the corporate network, to the business network, and so on. So we have that challenge, is multifaceted challenge around insiders from the perspective of they may do something unwittingly and click on the link, but also they may be coerced into doing something. They too may become victims of things like romance scams. They may be groomed online for a number of months. They may reveal something embarrassing online on a video or something. And then they're told, well, actually, I know you work in the blue bank and I want you to do the following, or click on the following, or download the following, whatever it happens to be. And we see a lot of that kind of romance scam and extorting people into being able to do things. And of course, then you just get people that turn bad. They get disgruntled and they're on the inside, and they're inside, your trusted zone. So there's a lot there to contend with. So now, guys, the elephant in the room is effectively COVID. This has been, I often refer to this as being the most effective digital transformation officer in the world. And this is good news for all of us from the point of view of cybersecurity, cyber risk, because it means the industry has never been more in demand than it is today. And why is that? Well, let me explain. Well, COVID has had this huge impact, and I'll talk about that upon the world. But effectively, what it's done is it has been a catalyst for acceleration for people digitizing their businesses, digitizing their business models, accelerating their plans to move businesses online. We all, as consumers, are using the internet more. We're using it for shopping. We're using it for socialization. We're using it for dating. We're using it for everything. And that dependency is increased. And therefore, there's increased requirement, need for people that can manage cyber risk and can deal with cybersecurity related issues. So let me look a little bit deeper into this, if I may. When we look at this COVID, and I'll go quite quickly through some of these slides, guys, because this is recorded and will be available. So if I do go too quickly through certain aspects of it, don't worry, you can replay it up on the ICTTF Cyber Risk Academy portal at icttf.org. So it's caused chaos in the global economy. It's disrupted supply chains. It has transformed society, how we all operate. Zoom as opposed to being in a meeting, face masks, how we greet each other even in the real world. Everything has transformed on how we're operating. It has this piece I've talked about, this acceleration, this is key, but it has impacted what we call the inherent cyber risk. So let me go down a little bit deeper on this. So no two businesses are the same. Everybody's a different business model. Everybody's a different culture to their business, a different background, a different dependency on legacy systems and so on, different number of employees, different country they operate on. All of these kind of data points, they all combine together to make up what we call your inherent cyber risk. That is effectively, what is the risk you have as a business from a cyber perspective? How many of your employees work remotely? How many of your suppliers are delivering service remotely? All of these kind of things, if you can think of them, or points that would input into that risk level, that inherent cyber risk level. Now, the art of cyber risk management and doing this properly is making sure that you understand that risk level and that you're measuring that risk level. And therefore, you're able to make risk management decisions. And those risk management decisions are, you accept the risk, mitigate the risk, potentially you transfer that risk. Okay, you may share, there's a couple of other nuances there, but essentially they're the major decision points you can make around understanding cyber risk. Now, why is this really important? It's really important because no business is exactly the same as it was pre-COVID. There's no business. They now have a greater dependency on video communications. They have more employees working remotely. They have different suppliers they're using. And that means that they need to evaluate their cyber risk levels. They need to construct security programs. They need to implement those programs, measure them, manage them. They need to train their staff. All of these things mean that that number of jobs of 6 million that are open at the moment around the world is a very conservative figure, because there's never, it's like a vacuum there of talent that people are looking for more and more people to work in this area. So if you are interested in working in the world of cybersecurity, there really hasn't been a better time. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I think you may even be better placed by not being an existing cybersecurity person to enter that world in a moment. So more about that as we go on. And we have this increased reliance on the digital economy. A little bit more on this. We've talked about the increased reliance on the internet. Now, this increased cyber threat actor activity, Interpol, Europol, even the World Health Organization, all these organizations have reported this increased cyber threat actor activity. And we see statistics going around 400%, 500%, blah, blah, blah. They're just statistics. The reality is, if you're living in the world, you know, you're getting scam phone calls, you're getting more phishing emails, you're getting more spam. These guys have amped up their game, and it's a numbers game. It's what we call spray and pray. They just send out millions and millions of emails and messages, hoping 1 in a million will click on those things. And it's become easier for them. And why has it become easier? Well, we'll talk about this as well from the perspective of so many people are working remotely. And when you're working remotely, you're distracted. You're discombobulated, you're distressed maybe, you're trying to work on things, you're in a shared environment, you're working on a residential internet gateway. It's not an ideal situation, especially to work maybe on sensitive data and so on. So with all of this acceleration, in the initial stages of COVID, let's say going back maybe 1 year, right, I would say that it was almost forgivable, but certainly understandable that people did not follow the normal cybersecurity rules and controls. And when people don't follow those rules and controls and those processes and those policies, we refer to that as shadow IT. It's effectively somebody working around the controls and policies that are in place. So let me give you an example. COVID happens, everybody tries to keep the show on the road. So they decide, well, we're going to set people up working from home. Maybe we don't give them a VPN. Maybe we just give them, maybe they don't have anti-malware installed. Maybe they're working from their own personal laptop. all of those kind of things. And that was, as I say, maybe understandable, maybe even forgivable at that point. But the world has transitioned and we're certainly in a new normal at the moment. And from that perspective, where we are now is that every business has to catch its breath. They have to reevaluate their cyber risk and make sure that they are developing a potential roadmap to deal with the mitigation of those risks that they've absorbed. Because those short-term decisions, it may have not taken into account the longer term imperatives around compliance. So, for example, if somebody was working in a regulated industry, such as a financial industry, the regulator and so on, auditors and internal auditors, so will come along and go, whoa, you weren't following the rules that we all agreed to, those policies, procedures. And there's never going to be an opportunity that goes, but hang on, COVID. That's not going to happen. So it's effectively, that burden is now on every business in the world to make sure that their policies are appropriate for how they operate and that they're doing what they say they do. They're operating, implementing their management systems around cyber and information risk and privacy. So this increased pressure on the supply chain, the digital architecture, and that psychological impact on humans that I've spoken about already. I often refer to this as what I call the C19 cyberstorm, C19 being COVID-19, cyberstorm, that there's almost this perfect lineup of risk elements. And when we look at this from a macro level, there's the economic side of COVID, there's the geopolitics. We see Biden and Putin meeting up and almost agreeing rules of engagement for warfare, for cyber warfare. You don't touch this and we won't touch that. You do this and we'll do that. All that kind of stuff. We see a lot of that going on. From a privacy perspective, GDPR was just starting to bite and get a grip on people. We saw massive fines coming in, €250 million on people like British Airways and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden privacy went, park that, because of COVID, because now everybody just hands out all their details willy-nilly. And it was one of those things where we go, but we need to do that to keep going forward as a society and as a world, and we'll fix it later. But why do we think we're getting all these spam emails, all the phone calls, everything else? Because our data is now everywhere. And bad guys know that and they take advantage of that. And of course, we've got the increased cyber threat activity that I've mentioned already. So we've talked about this COVID catalyst being the most effective digital transformation officer in the world. And that's real. And that from the point of view of your own advantage within your career, it's an opportunity to be able to take advantage of that because the industry itself is looking for so many people. So we often refer to things like this as black swan events. A black swan event in risk terms is something that we thought would never happen, but then becomes quite normal. So let's think of this, right? A black swan event, ransomware hitting a health sector and knocking out the health sector of an entire country. Now it's happening all over the world, right? So we're seeing more and more black swan events from cyber threat actors, from things we just thought would never happen, and they're happening. Even from us as normal human beings getting desensitized to this, and if you don't even consider yourself at the forefront of dealing with it, we all have to realize that this is a different kind of threat actor. This is a different kind of threat vector that they can carry out. If they work out how to take 10 cents and work out how to do it a million times in an hour, that's a lot of money they're going to get really, really quickly. If they work out how to devastate a business, it's not like a fire and, maybe only some of the building burnt down and we can continue on with a certain amount of resilience in the business and we can move. They can devastate and wipe out a business in hours. Gone. If all your data is gone, how do you perform? If you're an accountancy firm, if you're a legal firm, and if your backups are destroyed and all your data is gone, if you don't have access to equipment and devices that you require, such as the health sector, you're pretty much out of business, So all of these things are a greater impact that we have to deal with as society and businesses and so on. And it's a different kind of threat, a different kind of risk. And most businesses don't really appreciate that, if I'm honest. And that's why there's such a I suppose it's just why one of the reasons why the CCRO course, the Certified Cyber Risk Officer course, has been so successful around the world, because businesses are looking for people that can identify, measure, and manage cyber risk within an organization, to develop a cyber strategy and to be able to help the business deal with the threat landscape that is there. So let me keep going, because still some people coming into the room here, which is good. There we go. So we often talk about, when we talk about any kind of subject matter around or related to IT, people often think of it in project terms, like, oh, you get the cyber installed, or you download the cyber from the cloud, all this kind of stuff. And it makes me laugh because security is a journey, not a destination. It's an ongoing process that has to be done. So this is something like a management process that you develop within an organization. You continually develop it over and over again. For example, there's a life cycle within things like ISO 27001 known as the Deming life cycle. And the Deming life cycle is a life cycle of continual improvement. It's not about it being 100% secure. It's about understanding where you are and continually improving and being able to record that you are improving and you are managing the risks. That's what this art form is about. It's not about delivering a project and it's done and then you move on and you think everything is secure, because the risks are changing. It's dynamic. The business model is changing. There's different people in the company. There's different business partners. There's different objectives and business objectives and ambitions for the company. So therefore, cyber risk has to change all the time. So let's move on. And we look at where we are from the point of view of cyber threat actors and what's happening at the moment. So I mentioned a lot of this already from the point of view of Europol, even local guards, National Cybersecurity Centre. And I think, look, the dogs in the street know that there's an increased cyber threat actor activity, so I won't dwell too much on that. But I would like to bring your attention to this quotations from Christine Lagarde, because this is a great way of emphasizing, like, we need a reminder that as human beings, we're all interconnected and interdependent on this planet. Christine Lagarde came out with a speech that caught my attention. Christine Lagarde is the president of the European Central Bank, if you're not familiar with her. And she talked about that an attack on the financial sector could result in a liquidity crisis. Now think about that, right? An attack on the financial sector. Didn't say where, didn't say how big the attack would be, just that it could cause a liquidity crisis. Now, what that's really saying is the financial sector, the world's economy, is all interconnected, whether you're a small player, medium player, large player. And that knock-on effect of collateral damage is almost like a domino effect, that the financial sector woke up to this a number of years ago when what was known as the SWIFT hacks, which wasn't SWIFT being hacked, by the way, but if you want to Google it, it's an interesting story. And it's really about the fact that there can be a contagion knock-on effect within the sector or even the global economy. And that's when the G7 themselves, the global 7 countries, came out with the G7 Cyber Fundamentals, which is aimed at providing guidance to senior level, essentially boards of financial service companies. And maybe say, guys, these are the minimum things you need to do. And I've already covered off some of those things, inherent cyber risk being one of them, managing risk, the second one. These are all fundamental aspects of that every business and every financial service company in the world is being told they should do. So let's move on a little bit. So when we talk about cybersecurity, there's almost this aspect where people think, oh, that's the IT department. Okay, cybersecurity, cyber risk management is a business issue. It should be seen as an investment, not a cost. It's everybody's responsibility. And I think there's lessons we can learn from the likes of the aviation sector. So for example, in the aviation sector, safety is everybody's responsibility. Doesn't matter whether you're the pilot, whether you're the baggage handler, whether you're the ticket person, it doesn't matter. Everybody's responsible, including us as customers, if you like, within an airport. Because if we saw something like this, an unattended bag, what happens is your instinct goes, that doesn't look right. I should really say something or do something. There's no one around that bag, and why is it sitting on its own? Now, why is that? That's because we take a community sense of responsibility, and it's in our interest to make sure that that's not a danger. We have to do exactly the same with cybersecurity. So we can't, for example, if our bank account is hacked, blame the bank. Certainly if we haven't put patches on our phone, if we're using insecure Wi-Fi and we get an account hacked, how can we blame the bank? We all have a part to play. And if we all play a part with cyber hygiene, so it's very similar, if you like, in many ways to COVID. It's equivalent of washing hands, wearing face masks, all that good stuff, social distancing. There's the equivalent in the world of cyber. And if all businesses do this and all individuals do this as customers of those businesses, a lot of the threat actors just disappear, because 90% approximately, right, of cyber threats are the mundane. They're the very simple things that are making it very easy for script kiddies. And it's only the top end that takes sophisticated cyber threat actors. Those cyber threat actors are often nation states, and we refer to those as APTs, Advanced Persistent Threats. So let's move on, and we look at the role of leadership. So one of the phrases I tend to use is, look, the answer to cyber is leadership. And the reason I hit out with that is because we can't have the tail wagging the dog. You can't have an IT department or an IT security department telling the business what to do. Leadership has to come from the top. So we need to have our business leaders informed. We need them to be able to inform those other levels of the organization, from business leaders and senior managers and so on, all the way down. It has to come from the top down. For example, even with my commercial business of Cyber Risk International, if we were engaged by a company and we weren't dealing with the leadership, we simply won't engage with the company because we know it's a waste of time. Busy enough. We don't need to deal with a customer who doesn't have the buy-in from the leader, doesn't have the buy-in with the championship, because you're going to affect technology, you're going to affect people, the processes, how things behave. And if you don't have that buy-in from the very top, then it's an uphill task. So this is all about setting policy, and policy gets set by the leadership. Policy effectively is what creates culture within an organization. If the policy is that you don't have to have passwords, then that's the policy. And what kind of culture is that? If the policy is that, you know, it's quite strict and everybody has to have multi-factor authentication and all those good things, and everybody has to have anti-malware and everybody gets regular training, that's a secure culture, and that comes from policy. So policy influence behavior and influence the culture of the organization. So we need to go a step beyond that when I talk about this area of loyalty and going beyond that. So, and all this relates down to what we're all trying to achieve as online businesses in many ways, which is effectively trust. And trust is a weird emotion for human beings, because you could have two twins and they'd have a different aspect of trust, same DNA, same culture they were brought up on, presumably, but they'd have a different level of trust. When you trust something, you make yourself vulnerable to it. Okay, the ultimate trust in life is love. And when you look at this and you say to yourself, okay, we're establishing all these digital businesses and we want people to trust us online. So different people are going to gauge these businesses in different ways. And establishing cyber trust and trust within those digital businesses into brand, into integrity, is key to managing cyber risk. So the champions and the super CCROs of this world, certified cyber risk officers, that's what they're about. They're enabling and empowering the business. They're not just maintaining a policy. They're not just writing policies and things like that. They're making the business successful. They're empowering the business because they're able to let the business deliver its mission, and they're able to do it in a safe and secure way and manage the bumps in the road as you go from a cyber perspective. So again, we get back to this two worlds piece, because there's many aspects of this, and okay, maybe the physical side of this world might have been less of an issue during COVID, but it's certainly still a huge issue. And what we find is all the bad guys work together. They don't operate in silos. Okay, and we need all the good guys to work together, especially within an organization. So if you work for a large organization and they have a physical security department with, you know, people on desks, all that kind of stuff, well, cybersecurity needs to be talking to those guys, and those guys need to be talking to cybersecurity, because if a bad guy can't hack in through firewalls or send links, they'll walk in and lift a laptop, or they'll walk in and connect a laptop into a comms room, or they'll go into a meeting room that's flood wired and they'll connect something into a Cat5, Cat6 port, and they'll move on from there. Or they'll be sitting in the car park hacking into your Wi-Fi. So the two worlds have converged. So from your threat actor perspective, the threat actor is certainly hopping in and out of the real world, the physical world, and the cyber world. And as somebody that wants to identify, measure, manage cyber risk and support a company, that's why we need business protection officers to do that. Now, one of the things, it's a supply and demand market, guys, right? And cybersecurity, I've already alluded to the fact that there's a lot more jobs than there are people to do the jobs. Okay. Now, I believe some of the problems in that is around how people are being recruited, and I'm working with some of the biggest recruitment companies in the world to try and change that, so that they won't put these barriers up and compound the problem that we have in hiring people. So, and by that I mean the fact that they put these prerequisites to people saying, "Oh, you must have a CISSP or you must have a CISM." That's effectively saying you have to have 10 years experience in the cybersecurity industry before we're going to give you a go at this job. But you might be able to do the job with your eyes closed with a micro credential. I mean, absolutely. So all of those things. But let's look at where the top end is going at this at the moment. So when we look at this, we see that it's not uncommon. It's not common, but it's not uncommon for CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, to get over $1 million a year. And I've seen packages far higher than that are going on. It often takes a year or two to try and find these people. And it's been like that now for probably about 5 years. There's lots of these $1 million jobs and multi-million dollar jobs going out there because it is so difficult. I'm going to go into this a little bit about why it's difficult as well. So firstly, really quickly, and I'm not going to dwell too much on this, right? But because I say you can rewind this with your in the video, right? But let's just look at all the areas here on this infographic that generally a CISO works in. They work on everything from budget to business enablement, which is that whole piece I talked about there, supporting the business, security operations, risk management, identity management, legal, HR, compliance, audit, security architecture, project delivery lifecycle. These are all skill sets you need to be really, really good. CISO, top end CISO, we often talk about them in 4 levels. Now, not every organization can afford a CISO. But what they might do is have a CISO office or CISO function. They might call it something a little bit different. They might call it IT security, cybersecurity. But generally, all of these skills and talents have to be somewhere within that function or that area. It may not all be in one person's brain, and it might not be one person's remit, but it certainly has to be delivered generally, all of these things within that area. Now, let's look at this infographic in a little bit more detail. And on the left-hand side, guys, what we're seeing is level 1, 2, 3, and 4 of CISOs. A level 4 CISO are the CISOs that are getting over $1 million a year. Okay. And there's probably only, honestly, a couple of hundred of those in the world. Okay. And it's the top end. But what's really interesting when you look at this, for example, is when you look at what the skill sets and what they do, you see a level 1, which is generally maybe an IT manager that calls themselves a CISO, and they've worked their way in, and somebody that's worked their way up. It's about business acumen. It's about business skills. It's about communication skills, business analytical skills. It's about all of those kind of things. I'll just bring your attention over to the right-hand side here for a sec, guys. I'm going to just fly straight over here. About leadership competencies, results-oriented, team leadership, change orientation, influence and collaboration, strategic capability. Where on that did I mention cyber? Okay, these are the softer skills that are so important for a CISO to go from a level 1 CISO to a level 4 CISO. And that's what the world's looking for. It's looking for people that actually understand how businesses operate, may have worked in anti-money laundering or compliance or procurement or risk management, or fund management, whatever, some other part of a business. They understand how the businesses operate. They care about the businesses. And those answers lie within businesses, because that's where you want to get that loyalty from people who already work in the business. Skill them up, give them appropriate skills so they can actually be those business protection officers that we require within businesses themselves. So look, I'll let you go through that slide at your own convenience on that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenge that businesses have in attracting talent themselves. And supply and demand, as I've said, this is part of the challenge and the issue for businesses. They're trying to find people, but you get these huge silicon Goliath companies that offer swimming pools and bring your dog to work and blah blah blah. They're almost a cult, and they basically take a lot of the market, and people go in. So it's even harder then to find people. Again, another reason why you should nurture the talent from within an organization and train the people within your own organization to be able to do this. So I love my quotes you may have gathered at this stage. So it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. That's very true when it comes to COVID and businesses surviving. It's about how they're going to change. It's been a disruptor. It's been a disruptor to our lives, to businesses. Disruption brings opportunity for businesses, and there's going to be a lot of people doing really, really well out of this. So what I want to focus you in on, whether you're leading a business or working in a business, is that My strong advice to any organization I'm talking to is, before you start trying to recruit externally, before you start trying to use external consultancies and so on, to carry out cybersecurity and cyber risk work, and this comes from somebody who owns a consultancy firm, is don't use the consultants, right? Try and find the people within your own organization. They know you best and they care. And if you can augment their existing skills and experience of the organization with something like micro credentials, and I keep saying the word micro credentials because this is a big debate that goes on in the industry. So you've got people that will effectively go, hey, I did my degree in cybersecurity and I did my master's degree, but I don't seem to be able to find a job. Cybersecurity is a meritocracy. If you can do the job, you get it. It's not about academia and academic qualifications. It's not that kind of industry. Because by the time something becomes part of a syllabus within a degree level program, it's stale, it's old, it's out of date. So you're learning something that is really old. It's important and conceptually it's great and everything else like that. But in the real world, what we're looking for is people that can do the job and can apply the knowledge and so on. And that's why even the United States of America changed all of the recruitment rules to say that degrees are no longer necessary. This is about being able to get people that can get skilled up quickly, augment existing abilities and skills and experiences, and move forward, because that's the way that's what's required on all sides. So this is a key message. The answer lies within the organization. So let's look at an overview now of the CCRO course. So I've referenced it a couple of times there. That's the Certified Cyber Risk Officer course. And the reason I want to provide this overview is a couple of reasons. One of them is to show you the holistic breadth of the world of cybersecurity. It's not just firewalls and patching and security architecture. It's not just access management. It's so many different things from a business perspective. So if your background is in business, you're potentially further down the road to being one of those level 2, 3, 4 CISOs than somebody who has spent the last 10, 15 years of their career setting up firewalls, patching systems, all of those areas, because that's the noise of the business. That's the techie end. And there's lots of people that can do that kind of work, quite honestly. And it's well catered for from an education point of view, from a vendor perspective, from solutions, all that. What the world is looking for, I always think of it like a pyramid. And at the bottom of the pyramid is that more technical end piece. But as you go up that pyramid, and the skills are more specific, more focused, and of course the rewards are too. And that's where generally people are that are entering into the industry after working in another part of business for some time. So you may be that individual as well. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so the first thing is what we cover off is we look at understanding the cyber risk landscape. And you'll have covered off some of this in the cybersecurity bootcamp from the point of view of understanding threat actors, their motivations, their objectives, how they're organized, that whole ecosystem, how it operates. We then look at how to understand what the cyber strategy requirements of an organization are. You will not believe how many businesses I walk into, and I would talk to a CISO, so-called CISO, and say to them, okay, do you have a cyber strategy? And they go, no. Have you, okay. Or I might walk into someone and say, yeah, we do have a cyber strategy. And say, okay, and have you got a business strategy? I've never seen the business strategy. Well, how did you write a cyber strategy? How can you have a strategy that's aligned with what the business wants? One, if the document doesn't exist, or two, if you've written the document, but you haven't aligned it with what the business is trying to do. So this is the business side of cyber, understanding what the business needs and being able to deliver it. And that's what gets you into the boardroom. That's why when the boardroom starts talking to you from the point of view of, you're not going to come in and start talking to them about pen test results and vulnerability scans and all that good stuff. You're going to talk to them in business terms. You're going to relate it back to the business mission and what the business is trying to do. This is a really, really important aspect of it. And then we talk about CRQ, cyber risk quantification. So it sounds really technical. It's about the simplicity of meaningful metrics. It's being able to measure things in a way that the business will understand, as opposed to the techies. Techies love numbers. And I'm speaking as a techie, right? So they love all that analysis of risk levels of different vulnerabilities and patches and all that good stuff. But what does the business care about? They want to know what's the risk to that business objective. So we're going to run out a new business app. It's called the Banana app. We're rolling it out in 3 months. I want to know in a meaningful way, what are the risks to that? And if somebody's able to come back and say, well, we have this server, it has this risk, we don't have policies, that's a risk, we don't have that, that's a risk. and be able to articulate it in a way that the business understands in a meaningful way. Meaningful metrics is key, so that we cover that off. Then we look at cyber leadership and culture. How do you implement and develop cyber leadership within an organization and the culture of cybersecurity and cyber risk? It's the human skills, attracting talent, developing talent, working with people within the organizations right across. Then we move on to understanding cyber risk and the law. This is such a wide topic because we're talking about business regulations, legal regulations, industry regulations, and so on, all around the world, and how different they are. And how do you harmonize that? How do you deal with that? How do you make sure that your business is operating legally? Because you may put in certain cybersecurity controls, and based on your business model, you may be operating illegally. So all of those kind of things. And we talk about that. Lawyers love that piece, obviously, but even lay people outside of law love that aspect of it and understanding, because often that's how you get the business's attention. That's how you get buy-in at the board level. That's how you start talking the business speak to the board, and different from the techie speak, to be able to say, guys, we are facing potential fines here, or we're sanctions, whatever it happens to be, if we don't do the following. So really, really important to support the business with that knowledge. So we move on. We then look at cyber resilience and incident management. Isn't it a shame that the HSE didn't do that module? Because what we're looking at is that aspect of understanding incidents will happen. How do you manage them? How do you deal with them from a business perspective, and how to develop cyber resilience within the organization? So resilience being minimizing the chances of it, minimizing the impact, and increasing your ability to be resilient and continue in business afterwards. And for those of you who may work in say, for example, the financial sector, it's interesting to go onto maybe the European Central Bank's website and download their document on the minimum expectations of cyber resilience. This is on the board of every financial sector in the world. Cyber resilience. If you're working in the financial sector and you want to get that segue into this area of cyber, start talking about cyber resilience within your organization, and they'll be all ears and they'll want to talk to you, because this is what's been pushed in a huge way from the aspect of the financial sector. We also look at third-party cyber risk and remote workers. So how do you manage all your suppliers from a cyber risk perspective? What are the kind of controls and approaches you can take? How do you now manage your remote workers? What sort of kind of controls should they have in place? How do you manage that and to deal with all of that? So again, another aspect of it. And then finally, we look at putting it all together. So you learn through each of the modules each week on how to actually gain a level of expertise in all of those areas, from procurement to incident management to developing a strategy, everything else like that. And then at the end of it, we look at putting a case study together about, well, let's develop a cyber strategy here. So not often students will actually do the course and start developing their strategy module by module through the course as well. So they actually deliver something for themselves by the end of it. So it can be quite useful from that point of view. So look at developing the strategy itself. So I'm going to try and play a short video, and hopefully you'll get the audio on it. I'm not sure if you will, because I think that I forgot to share the audio aspects of this. So don't worry, we will put it into the recorded video if we do, but you might be able to pick up on the audio aspect of it, but we will try that now. So if we don't, I will just move on past the video and you can bear with me. So,
and if I was to say to any other of my board directors or any other board directors who may listen to this, is that it should be the #1 course for all board directors as part of your professional development plan.
Actually, I guess there were so many different aspects of it actually that I was actually genuinely surprised as to how wide the topic was. Also very interesting. Obviously, it touched areas around the outsourcing, around cyber strategy. To be honest, all these areas that we've discussed at a board level. But actually now I actually was armed and dangerous in the board meeting. So I was asking probably a lot more questions than they appreciated.
I suppose I've been in adult education for 20 years now, upskilling, doing various levels of courses, doing, I've done degrees, diplomas, kind of other, maybe not non-professional qualified courses, but I have been doing in adult education for 20 years. And yes, this is by far and away the best course I've ever done.
Having completed a master's in cybersecurity in the last couple of years, I built up a lot of theoretical knowledge, and this course was really to fill in some of the practical cyber risk management gaps that I felt I had in my knowledge. The course was really excellent, I have to say. Very practical, very relevant, very topical, with great examples, real life examples of issues that are happening today in every entity around the world. So yeah, it was a really useful course, and really thrilled that I did it, actually. Well, as I said, I've completed a cybersecurity master's, but a lot of that is theoretical, a lot of discussion points. But this course is very practical. It's really how you can implement a cyber risk management framework in your organization today. So, anyone working in that area, I would suggest, they should be looking to this course because it will help them in their day-to-day job.
So guys, that's obviously some good feedback, and hopefully you're able to hear that okay from some of the students on it. And look, part of the initiative of what we're doing here with ICTTF as a not-for-profit initiative is obviously to spread knowledge and so on. And we've talked about trust, how it's the cousin of security, or the sister of security, as we say here. It's the human emotion, and it's what makes people vulnerable. We've gone through this, but trust is the CISO's core mission. It's making sure that people trust the company you work for, making sure the people in that company trust the company with data, with systems, everything else. And we're not just talking about it being hacked and stolen. We're talking about the ethical use of things like artificial intelligence, the morality of technology, and all of those kind of challenges that go quite deep and quite wide in relation to this whole entire area, and it falls under that piece. So look, what we do at this point of the course is, as a way of congratulating you on your achievement of getting through the cybersecurity bootcamp for women, we provide you with a €1,000 voucher towards the course, because we genuinely, and I think at this stage that our sentiments are very genuine, that we want to get as many people as we can educated and onto that career program. And the CISO course, and there's other courses there, but the CISO course is fundamentally the flagship way of augmenting somebody with business skills and experience and getting them into a level that they will be able to become business protection officers. On top of that, actually, and I can thank Natalia for this, or you can thank Natalia for this. For those of you who may be employed in Ireland, there's actually a further subsidy available from Technology Ireland ICT SkillNet. So you can actually get the course from as little as $495 if you're eligible for that grant as well. So ICTTF, if you completed this bootcamp successfully, will give you €1,000 voucher off the course. And if you're eligible for the grant from Technology Ireland ICT SkillNet, they will give you a further 455 off it, so it brings it down to under €500. So you could ask Santa for that and get that from Santa Claus maybe, and start off 2022 by becoming a CCRO. But look, enough about that. I think we're going to be ready for some Q&A. Happy for you guys to turn on your cameras if you want, and I think Natalia will come on and we can you can just ask questions directly, or if they're in the chat, Natalia, if you want to call them out, I'm happy to answer them. I know we're tight in time, but we certainly have about 7-8 minutes anyway that we can answer any questions people may have.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. I didn't get any questions in the chat yet. I just wanted to let all of you know that this is the 6th cybersecurity bootcamp. We started in March, as Paul discussed in the beginning. The idea was run only 3 of them, became 6, and we trained over 1,000 women. So spread the word. We have more bootcamp next year, hopefully 4 during 4 different dates during the 2022. And seems that I got a question here. Paul, how do you think the HSE could have been better prepared for the recent attack?
Okay, so I'll answer in abstract, as in I don't want to be on the record for slagging off the HSE. How can any organization be better prepared to deal with a ransomware attack? Okay, firstly, ransomware is a product of poor cyber hygiene. Okay, so basic cyber hygiene would mean that you've got certain controls in place. For example, you've segmented networks, you have anti-malware, you've trained your staff. Good cyber hygiene would mean that if something did happen, like a ransomware attack, that from a resilience perspective, you are not switching off everything, because you're able to segregate that network. You're able to contain the issue, and containment is something we talk about around incident response and how that can be done. So the lessons out of that are there was zero resilience in that particular case. But in the abstract, an organization, there's no shame maybe being hit with ransomware. There's no shame in being a victim of cybercrime. But where the blushes might come are when it comes into, well, how can your strategy be to switch everything off? And let everything be on a flat network, and let everything become susceptible to an attack. So I think, it's a poster child for how to get it wrong, unfortunately. The things they did do right was, if they didn't pay the ransom, that was the right thing to do, not pay the ransom. And look, there's many organizations with even deeper pockets than the HSE. But I think, and I'm trying not to talk too much specific about it, but when you think of the impact it's had on everybody, it's hard not to talk about it. People's appointments being put out for so long, treatments people didn't get, but also there's probably going to be €1 billion of Irish taxpayers' money paid to mop up all of this that was preventable. So, yeah, I should probably stop there. But look, we actually, what I think, Natalia, you probably know the dates better than I do, but are we running a ransomware workshop soon?
Yes, tomorrow actually.
Oh,
So
cool.
yes, just taking the opportunity. If you girls want to join the community as an associate member, you have access to an exclusive content, including the ransomware workshop. It's a small fee compared to the price of the course, and you can have access to many videos, post interviews, discussing all this discussing things as the HSE, all the interviews he made during the year. So it's a great opportunity. Paul, I got another question here. Thanks for the great course. Is CCRO aimed to do the already in a company? I have been out of IT for 10 years due to family. Okay, so about the grant, about the discount, I will be following up with all of you later today or earlier tomorrow. I will send an email with all the links, all the details to avail of the voucher, and also the information to have the grant from ICT SkillNet.
Yeah, and just to go back to Louise's question there about being out of business for 10 years, this is the CISO course. There's nothing technical in it. And I say that with the smallest of caveats on it, which is anything technical is explained. So you could be out of IT for 10 years or have just never been in IT, and the course is going to be suitable. If you look at even some of the testimonials from the people on the courses, they're not technical IT people. They're lawyers. They're people that worked in procurement. They're board directors. They're people working anti-money laundering, project managers, all different aspects of business analysts, so on. So when we designed the syllabus for CISO, it was about business people. It's business level education. So what it's able to do is, it's not turning the aim of it isn't to turn someone into just somebody who is a top cybersecurity expert and they're going to work in that field. It's somebody that understands business, how businesses operate, and is able to take in all the cyber skills required to develop a strategy, understand cyber risk, manage it, all of those aspects of it. So I would say it's absolutely ideal if you're trying to get back into the industry, whether you want to go down a technical track. Once a CIT, I think it's a technical track you want to go down, or if you're going to management around IT, and all of the IT companies, even providers out there, are crying out for salespeople, project managers, implementers, everything that have cyber related knowledge and skills. And this is a fast track bootcamp type approach to do that. It still takes 8 weeks and it's hard work, but I would certainly encourage you to do it.
Yes, just having some messages. Thank you all for the support, because without all of you, won't be possible to go ahead with the course. And the niche framework is so practical. We have a course about the niche, and now for those living in Ireland, we also be available in the ICT SkillNet portfolio. with amazing funding for all of you in Ireland. We are trying to expand the partnerships to get it for in other countries, but for now it's only in Ireland. And I think that's everything today, Paul.
No problem,
I don't
Natalia.
think you have any other questions.
No problem. And look, guys, if there's any follow-on questions, we're here. We want to be part of your journey into the cybersecurity industry. Natalia mentioned the NIST course there. For those of you who are interested in maybe delving a tiny bit more technical into that aspect of it, the NIST course might be the one for you. Now, NIST, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, which we cover off to a high level in the CISO course, but the NIST course is essentially was a 10-week course of 10 modules. NIST Cybersecurity Framework is used for over 90% of organizations around the world, or they use a flavor of it. So you're making yourself very, very appealable to employers and so on if you understand NIST. And actually, the course itself has actually been approved by NIST. It's up on their website, and they've endorsed it by putting it up on their website as well. And it's great credit. And of course, all of the feedback we've got on it is amazing as well, which is brilliant for us, because it's something very practical. And I would certainly encourage people, generally, if they haven't been in cyber before, I'd suggest do your CISO first, then the NIST. But if you're au fait with a lot of this material and so on, you want to go straight into NIST. Straight for NIST, but I know I respect your time. I think we're just up to the hour. Thank you, Natalia, for organizing this, and thank you so many of you for coming on this and for coming on the journey with the course. Like we said, we'll make this video available within 24 hours. It will be up on the portal, and I hope to meet you guys in the real world as well. If you can find a way to get into the EU Cyber Summit on November the 30th, it'd be great to hopefully get some of you guys along. It'll be broadcast on a stream for associate members as well on the website. So. Because I know that the tickets are a little bit expensive and they're aimed at a whole other market. But if you're they're fantastic. But listen, thank you so much, everybody, and I'm glad that you've found it such a valuable course. We do welcome and we live off your praise and your feedback and your testimonials. So please send them in, because we can use them to encourage other people to come into the industry as well. So thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a great day. Take care. All the best. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you.